Hello everybody, and welcome to today's Dynamics365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is Unified Development Experience for Finance and Operations. My name is Takamitsu Endo, and I'll be your moderator today. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Peter Villadsen, Pankaj Thakur, and Saurabh Kuchhal. Saurabh, over to you.
Thank you, Taka. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you everyone for joining us. Today's topic is Unified Development Experience for Finance and Operations. With me, I have Peter, who is Principal Product Manager. I also have Pankaj here, Principal Software Engineer, and myself, a Senior Solution Architect at Microsoft. We also have a lineup of more folks here to answer any questions you may have for Q&A. So please, if you have questions during the Tech Talk, you can use that. We did the first session on Unified Admin Experience 2 weeks back. The YouTube recording for that is available now. Now we are doing this Unified Development Experience. And the third session we will also plan in June very soon, which is we'll go into version control, TFS, Git. We'll talk about the build pipelines. We'll also talk about release pipelines for unified packages. So look forward to that one. In today's session, the objective is, first thing, why we need UDEs, right? Then how can you provision? We did cover this in previous Tech Talk, but just take 2 minutes here. Developer Workstation, how do you install DevTools and Visual Studio on your Developer Workstation? Write, debug, deploy on X++ and Dataverse. We'll also cover the SQL access from FNO and Dataverse, trace parser, and some good resources in the end. Our approach is here to in terms of UDE, Unified Dev Environment, to have the parity with cloud-hosted environment, plus what more it can do as we are moving towards one Dynamics, one platform journey. How can we have unifications across our Dynamics apps and build or develop solutions across these applications? I will hand it over to Peter. Peter, over to you.
Thank you so much. Ready to go here. So let me describe the objectives that we had when we were designing this particular thing. So what problems are we actually going to solve? So during this presentation, you'll be seeing a lot of demos and so on, and they are all very interesting and really enlightening for you. But let me take the helicopter view and try to explain a little bit more about what problems we're trying to solve are. So as an organization, as Microsoft, we were in a position where we have 2 very, very powerful platforms available to us. On one hand, you have the easy-to-use Maker experience that's now going into ProCode. This is the Power Platform, of course. On the other hand, we have the FNO environment, which is full of functionality, all written in X++. This is the ERP system that's really designed to do heavy lifting of a lot of things like finance and logistics and all these things. But there was no glue in between to make it easy to do something using the low-code Maker tools and actually get work done in the FNO environment. So we were not able to leverage the strength of each one of these parts and bring it together into one whole system. And that is why we were developing the unified. That's where the unified comes in, Unified Developer Experience. So the reason that we were not able to do this originally, or developers struggled, was that the X++ development story was very local. You have your one box, and on there you have your Visual Studio, the X++ compiler, all those tools. You also have the data hosted on a SQL server that runs locally, and so on. You know all that story, how that works. On the other hand, the Dataverse and the Power Platform runs in an online environment in the cloud. So we had to bridge those 2 things together. And also the management stories for these 2 things were wildly different. You had to manage them, one on LCS and one with PPAC. It was very different experiences. And as a result, the developing story and testing and debugging and other things that spanned both X++ and Dataverse were really, really challenging to set up. It took a lot of time to get that to work, and it was not very robust, and it was work for experts, not for everybody. So the setting up of the environment in itself was so complicated that it was hard to do, and it was keeping us back from reaching the goals that we wanted to reach. Now, as you will see in these demos that are following this talk here, you will see that we have solved a lot of these problems, and we can do all these developing, testing, and debugging scenarios very easily. And the setup environment that Pankaj will go through a little bit later is particularly easy now. It's almost a one-click setup now. In this quest to reduce developer friction, let's take a look at this diagram. So at the top, you have the pro developers' tools that they use. So you use Visual Studio to develop your plugins and so on. A lot of other things Visual Studio is used for in the Power Platform. You have the PAC CLI, the PAC command line interface that administrators can use to do all sorts of things. And then you have the ALM management story as well as a web-based experience. And this was the story before, right, for the Power Platform. And then you have all these apps, these community apps, like sales, marketing, customer services. I'm sure there are others that we didn't mention there. And they build on top of the Power Platform, and all the data story, all the data persistence happens with the Dataverse. So what we did was we put in this extra slot here as apps. So we regard now parts of the F&O environment, the functional parts are now apps in this particular pantheon of apps that are managed, that are developed with the same Visual Studio tools we just talked about, that are managed with the PPAC web experience that we just talked about. All those things now are one and the same. So in the old days, you had this LCS experience, for instance, for your F&O story, and you had the PPAC for the Power Platform story. Now those two have been merged together so that everything is managed in one. And we'll do the same and have done the same for the Visual Studio experience. So that's sort of the high-level construct for that. So let's take a look at some of the benefits that this provides for us. I'm going to do these in no particular order. So let's see, increased developer productivity. This is due to the ease of setup that we have now. It's much easier for people to do all the development chores that they need to do. You can switch between versions much easier. It's really a one-click story now. It's much more slick than it used to be, which means that the developer is now able to focus on the problems that he was supposed to solve, which is functional problems that he needs to do for his customer. So that's really, really big thing for us. Let me mention more compliant environments. So the CHEs that we mentioned before come with a total cost of ownership that is pretty high. You pay for them and you have to manage them. You have to keep them updated. You have to open ports, which is a security issue, to access them and stuff like that. All those problems are moot now. You can still use CHEs, but now we have a better story for you. In the old days, when you had problems that occurred, customers reported problems and so on, and the developers needed to figure out what the problem was. Sometimes they needed to get access to the data that caused these problems. And this was a really, really complicated story that could take days for that data to arrive on a developer's box. We have solved that problem now so that we can do that within hours now instead of days. So that's another thing that aids troubleshooting. And we don't even, in many cases, we don't even have to do that. Nowadays, we have the trace parser, which Pankaj will show you a little bit later, that allows us to capture information, a analysis of that locally on your box instead. So faster, so this is like if you are, we have placed the developer in a position now where he's able to solve the problems that he is intended to solve rather than solve problems in connectivity and interaction between these two environments. Of course, that's where we need to be. So let's take a look at this unified development experience a little bit more closely. So I would like you to focus on the diagram that you see on the right-hand side of your screen. So there you see your laptop. Now everything happens on your laptop locally, not in any other place. It's all set up on your laptop. And that laptop has Visual Studio running on it. And that Visual Studio instance with our new work can connect to any one or multiple different cloud instances. And each of these cloud instances contain the AOS, which executes X++ code. And just to make no X++ code is executed on your laptop or on your local box anymore. It all happens in the cloud. So you can connect to one or more of these and say, I want this one now, this is version this is version the other. I don't really care. I can switch between them seamlessly on my box. And what happens is that you use your development on your local thing. You do your builds, the compiler and all that stuff, of course, is installed. And then you have packages that may contain X++ code and other artifacts from the Power Platform. And then you do a deployment. And when that deployment happens, it can do automatically or manually. Then the bits arrive on the AOS and you can run them from there. And you can do your debugging, you can run unit tests, you can do all sorts of stuff, even though the code is running in the cloud. For instance, the debugging story is a cross-debugging story, but it's actually better than anything we've seen before. I think Pankaj will show that off a little bit later. So we also have, because our customers asked for it, and this is another demo that Pankaj will do, we actually, even though this data is residing behind this cloud wall, we have ways where we can provide just-in-time access if you have the authorization to do so, to actually interact with that data in ways that you are used to do, because our customers told us that this was a really strong feature that we needed. And we now are proud to say that we have implemented that. So with that, Saurabh, why don't you take it away?
Awesome. Thank you, Peter, for setting the context, setting the objectives, the need, and the benefits with Unified Dev Environment. Now let's look into quickly how we can provision this environment. To provision the new Unified Developer Environment, you can do it via PowerShell. We covered this topic in very detail in the previous tech talk, so on Unified Admin Experience. Just very quick recap. Need to make sure that from the role side in M365, admin has the role of Dynamics365 admin or Power Platform admin, and the license in the product like supply chain, finance, commerce, those licenses are assigned to that admin user. And from capacity side also, just to make sure that there is at least 1 GB of Dataverse and 1 GB of FNO database capacity is available before they can deploy this environment. To deploy you use PowerShell. There is a JSON. We will have the demo also right after this. The key field is DevTools enabled equal to true. This is what determines, yes, are we creating the developer sandbox or just a regular sandbox. Templates are there based on their license, finance, supply chain, or projects. You choose your location where you want to deploy this environment to. So there are multiple geos in Azure. So you can find the name of those geos through this command, get admin power app environment locations. And it always deploys on this with this PowerShell option. Let's take a look at the quick demo. All right. So first we open the PowerShell in the admin mode. With PowerShell, you can have FNO app, demo data, dev tools, all at once, and with the latest version. If you are looking for the previous versions, then please watch the previous tech talk. Then without PowerShell, you can do it through the UI as well. So first command is installing the Power Apps module in the PowerShell and say yes to all so that it install all the latest. Next is we creating the host, and another command is basically adding the cloud admin account. This is the same account which will be used to deploy this new environment. This account should have admin roles, as we mentioned earlier, Dynamics 365 admin or Power Platform admin, and also the product license should be assigned to this. Next is defining the JSON object in which we pass the parameters, the dev tools. This is important, dev tools equal to true, which creates the developer environment. Once it's done, the final command, which is named as admin power app environment, to create the new environment. We provide the display name, unique name for the new environment type will be sandbox for developer environment 2, templates as the product license you have. And once it's done, it will show the message like this. So it will take less than 1 hour. And in that time itself, you will have this new environment created. Let's also verify this environment created from the Power Platform Admin Center UI as well. We find that environment. I created Vardop Uno Dev 2. And now I'm just checking, okay, I have access to this. It already shows me environment URL, the CRM or CE URL, my region, type, and FNO URL also here. I can see all the CE users, Dataverse users over here. And all I need to do is I can add developer or developers on this environment. So the scenario is admin has created the environment and now he is adding the developers who will be using this environment for development purpose. So I'm assigning this sysadmin here. so that developer has access to all. You can also give customizer role, system customizer. And also you need to add in FNO also that user, same developer as system administrator. This sync will be automatically happening in coming time. So as soon as you add a system admin in Dataverse, it will also add into the FNO environment as well. This concludes the demo for creating the unified development environment. I will hand it over to Pankaj to talk about the next steps from the developer workstation and how to write, debug, deploy code. Pankaj, over to you.
Thanks so much, Saurabh. Let's delve into some of the demos for, what and how you would be using this. Basically, you focus on your developer machine. And the good news is that you can bring your own device. So laptop, VMs, cloud boxes in Azure, it's up to you. As many cores as you want. We would prefer at least 4 cores and 16 gigabytes of RAM. Solid state disks really matter. And of course, in this, architecture, a good network will be important. Visual Studio is basically what you need, and we are supporting 2022. 2022 with desktop works load would be enough, but we also want the modeling SDK, the DGML editor, and for reporting services, you would want that extension as well. By default, the SQL Server local DB is included as a component when you install Visual Studio, any workload. So that would be there. And, in case you are interested in looking at the database, either, the product database or the cross-reference and so on, you would, be benefited by SQL Server Management Studio. So the thing you do before you start setting up, right, you have the Windows machine, is that you first validate that you actually are in the correct role in the unified development environment. If you created it, well and good, but many times it is some tenant admin who creates these environments and dishes it out to different developers. So in that case, the first thing the developer should do is ensure a right access. Then Visual Studio is the tool that we use. So install our extension, the Power Platform tools for Visual Studio 2022, and also ensure that you have SQL Server local DB already set up and ready to go. This is actually included as a kind of default component in Visual Studio. And let's look at a demo. So in here, we are checking access to the environment that we received. And it's both FNO that we look at as well as Dataverse. And within Dataverse, we ensure that we are in the sysadmin role. The FNO side as well, we do the same. And moving forward, though, the two would be linked. So, if someone is added to a role in Dataverse, they would automatically be added to the equivalent role in FNO. But for now, you need to do that yourself and ensure that's so. In here, we are validating that we can connect to the local DB. As you see, the default instance is MS SQL local DB. And the extensions manager experience is very new and improved in the latest version of VS 2022, which is 17.10. And in here, I'm browsing the marketplace for all extensions. You see lots of extensions. We look at the one that we care about, Power Platform Tools for VS 2022. It's already installed in my case, so I see it in my installed tab as well. You see the updates tab, that's where I would update it to the latest edition if I needed to. And I also want to look at options and check or uncheck the relevant options for me. Pay attention to the skip discovery and the download logs and auto setup. So we'll see how they are used. In here, we are connecting to the database, to Dataverse. And I could choose to reconnect if it remembered my last known good connection. In this case, though, I'm showing you multi-factor authentication at play. So I started a new connection, and based on the account I'm using, I would be prompted to do the dual factor auth. In this case, it's a certificate on my machine. Actually, there's no password at all. It's just a certificate for this account that we've set up. So in case in your in your case you were using SMS or the phone authenticator app, that would work as is. The dialog that just was flashing was the one prompting the user to download the assets to install all the client side software. So you see here in the progress logs, all of the download happening, all of the unzipping of the package's local directory. The sizes can be up to 6 GB for the cross-reference database, and the zip metadata could be about 4 GB. And then there is the Visual Studio extension that we try and install. Sometimes we cannot install it ourselves, given the state of the machine. It may be pending a reboot, etc. So in that case, you simply have to double-click the VSIX and it will install in a matter of minutes, which is happening right now. So, we are installing the Finance and Operations extension to Visual Studio. And you see also in the background traceparser.msi, the package's local directory with all the metadata already unzipped, ready to go. I've installed it in 2 different versions of Visual Studio, Community and Enterprise. So if you don't need the Enterprise Edition, you don't have to pay the license cost for the Enterprise Edition. And here's the log for the installation of the VSIX. You don't really need to look at it, but in case you do, it's there. The first time you open up VS after the extension installation, you'll see these prompts for elevation. We need your permission to do these changes, like in here, adding the build targets to MS Build or X++ compiler. And you see this prompt saying that all of these changes were done successfully only for the first time you open up VS. We see the AOT, all the models that we have based on a configuration showing up in model view or classic view. Also, we look at our metadata configuration dialog, even though it's not really needed. It's all auto completed, but just to be familiar what's in your hands to change things. And there is something you would like to change here, which is the folder for your own custom metadata. You would definitely want to change that to a location where, either using a Git repo in Azure DevOps or something else where your custom metadata lies. And the folder for reference metadata is pre-populated with all the metadata we downloaded for the given version of app and plat that you're using in the environment. You see here in the databases, there are 2. When I refresh, there'll be a 3rd one showing up. This for the cross-reference database that we set up for you. And this is basically the metadata where, folder where you have your own custom metadata, and this is the reference that I just mentioned. You can add more references. Let's say you have metadata that is not something you develop or build on, but you have it from an ISV, you could add it to the reference metadata location. And right now you see I'm cleaning up certain old configurations that I don't really need, so you can delete and update them. So we go on to actually using this setup, right? So this setup was done for us. We understand what's going on, but we don't really have to do much. But now that's done, that's one time. I really want to get into my, my code, deploy that code, debug the code, test the code, all of that good stuff. So first thing I do is change the location for my custom metadata. You see I changed that. And when I refresh the models, you would have seen that the models changed, right? It might have flashed a little fast, but you can, if you look at the demo recording, you will see the models at the top. They were different models than what showed up later. And we now have fleet management models, but they don't exist in the environment. So from my Git repo, I want to publish these existing fleet management models that I have locally onto the environment. So I'll search up fleet management in the deployment dialog. I can choose to DB sync as well or not. I choose to deploy and DB sync. So I'm prompted to connect because I was not already connected. If I were already connected, then that connection would be used. And this is the place, this is your friend in terms of knowing what's really going on. So the Visual Studio Output pane, and within this, our tab for the Finance and Operations Cloud Runtime. So you can pretty much see what's going on here. Right at the top, we put some details about the environment you're connected to, and we have a few correlation IDs and so on that would be useful in case you were to reach out to us for anything. At the end of it, you see all of the deployment was successful. We go look for these models. We see the fleet management models now. So we are able to use fleet management in sync. And the logs for, what we just did shows up as well. It's auto-downloaded, the DB sync logs, the packages being applied. There were 3 different modules that we applied, so 1 for each. And you see the operation succeeded, DB sync was successful. This is the Power Platform Admin Center portal. And in here, is all the Dataverse tables. Because it's your environment, you have full access to it. The operation history table is your friend. All the things that you have been doing over the last many weeks, let's say, in this environment, you can take a look at. You can add columns, take a look at, any operations performed by your colleagues, or even Microsoft. We would be updating these environments as well with service updates, product quality updates. So all of those would be showing up here. And some of the fields include the logs that you might be interested in. So you can download these logs right from here. But in our case, we saw these were auto-downloaded for you, the same very logs. And in case there was something that went wrong in the environment, we will also include the ETL logs for them. So you'll be able to look at the ETL logs as well. Right now, we are going to debug some scenario within fleet management, form. So I have the code for that form already open. In case I'm just showing you, how these different modules are already available in the environment. And in case you want to load symbols that were not already loaded for you, because, while you started debugging, you were thinking of a given scenario, but while debugging, you wanted to drill down even further and load symbols for more modules, you can go do that. So now we are actually hitting the breakpoint because we executed the scenario there. I think it was a querying of something on this form. And as you see, I can step through code, step, out of code, F11, F10, shift F11, look at my locals, even change some values, anything that, you're used to doing while debugging, you should be able to try and do. And the thing to note, though may not be very visible in this demo, is that it has an edge in terms of performance over the local debugging, even though the client is connecting over the network to the data center where the runtime is, and you don't even know exactly what server, what machine, what is executing the runtime you're connecting to. It still is magically faster. So in here, I'm showing you, how you can choose to deploy right from the project itself, your incremental builds, on successful build completion with just the settings. And in here are the same settings for full builds, right? You can choose to deploy to connected environment, choose to synchronize database or not. So in this case, whenever you do a full build of any of these packages, if the build is successful, we will go ahead and deploy them as well. And we will do that for unit tests right now. You could choose to synchronize database just like before. And in that case, we would do only the database synchronization. The license file flashed by quickly. That's where you would add ISV licenses if you wanted to. And right now we are into debugging our unit tests. Just like we were debugging code, you can absolutely run the unit test, execute the unit test without debugging. But debugging is also possible for your unit test. And like before, FinOps Cloud runtime pane in Visual Studio Output is your friend for tracking what's going on. It could take a minute to execute the test, depending on how large the tests are, how many tests there are, and so on. But as you see, we were waiting on you to continue right before we executed any test or even any class initialization. So, when you are debugging unit tests, we are waiting for you to continue. And then you can hit any of the breakpoints you've set and debug just as before. All the info log messages, etc., anything coming in from the environment will be showing up. And you would be seeing exceptions in case the test fails. This is an exception, that is standard exception we have for failure. And I deliberately have these toy tests one to pass and the other to fail. So that happen, you see we are hitting all the breakpoints in tear down and setup as well. And once the execution completes, it'll take just a few seconds to get the results back. And we have full fidelity results as TRX files, so you saw that. In this case, I'm showing you how you can connect to a database using slightly different settings. So in this case, you choose to list out all the available organizations. You may have a username, password you already know. You don't need to know the online region. It could be in Canada. It could be in Europe somewhere. You can simply say, I don't know, and that's just fine. We will discover for this user all the different environments they have access to. And in this case, it's different user. We are going to connect to a different environment. And it could be the same instance of Visual Studio or two different instances of Visual Studio open side by side simultaneously. You could be connected to two different environments if you so want. And, that's the name of the environment. If you click on any of those, so in here, we are changing between two different configurations. So you see, this is the location for the first one. That's the current configuration, but I make, the top one, the current one right now. And you see on the left side, the models, all starting with AA, those 4 models. If I refresh the metadata, they would change because, I changed the location for where these models, my own custom models, need to be picked up. So I have 2 different repos, for example, or 2 different branches and so on. I could work that way. And yeah, that's what you see when you refresh models. So off to something else now. This is doing the same thing in Dataverse. The whole point of the unified development environment is for you to be able to use the best that we have to offer across the Power Platform, finance and operations, of course, and also Dataverse. So just a taste of what you can do in Dataverse right from Visual Studio. So as you see on the right, I have my solution open. It's the same fleet management unit solution, but now I have a plugin project. And now instead of looking at just the application explorer, I'm looking at the Power Platform Explorer. I can create a class for the entity, strongly typed, early bound class for account, and I've already created it. So this is like auto generated for you. Account is a big class, so there are quite a few different properties, all of that shows up for you. We can create plugin, which is one of the primary ways you extend the platform. In this case, I want to react to the event of any account being created post-operation asynchronously. I want to do something. So in this case, I have the code already, and you get a scaffolding for you, and you get places where you can add in your own logic. So the logic in this case is very simple. Whenever an account is created for that given account, referring that account, I want to create a follow-up task. And in this case, I have that task already. I'm editing the schedule start and schedule end. And the task should be linked to this account. But I did the editing, I did the rebuild pretty fast, and I choose to deploy this. Same concept, same thing. We are capturing the detailed logs, so that's why you saw all the verbosity there. The deployment is successful. And now we go into the environment. This is where, I have these two tasks from before for John Doe 2 and John Doe 3. And there's a new account I'm going to create, John Doe 4. And that should result in the plugin executing. We can look at the plugin logs as well right here in this portal. So John Doe 4 is created. And I don't have the task yet, but because it's asynchronous, it may take just a few seconds. When I refresh it, the task should be created now. So you see, the task, send email to this new customer. This is linked already to this account. Look at the timeline there. All the history shows up. There's a lot more that you can do apart from just that plugin. So we have this concept of catalogs. You see the event catalog for finance and operations, human resources. There are so many others, and depending on your environment, you may have a lot of these out of box. You can update what you have access to, what you own. Custom APIs, you can even create a new one. And custom APIs are really powerful and really simple. So you describe it and describe the input and output parameters. We support quite a few different types, and then implement your functionality onto them. So whenever those custom APIs are called, basically, you are in control of the input you receive, how you process it, and what output you provide. Very conceptually simple, and in terms of implementation, simple too. And you can do all of this right from the Power Platform Explorer. So we're looking at the service endpoints. We can look at data sources. If you own them, you should be able to edit them. So there is RBAC in place. So if you don't have the right permissions, you won't be able to make the changes. And over to Saurabh for trace parser and a few other interesting things.
Great. Thank you so much, Pankaj, for covering these great topics in deep with demos. Now let's talk about a few more things in terms of parity with SQL Access and trace parser. So in cloud-hosted environments, of course, you do have SQL Access for finance and operations. The reason is it's a different architecture and it's all on your local. But in the cloud, right, how do you have that access? So what we have done is we brought the within Visual Studio, the SQL credentials for Dynamics 365. The primary reason was the developer is mostly in the Visual Studio for their development. So we built that new option here under Visual Studio Tools. And by the way, team, this was the #1 ask from community as part of this UDE feature in preview. With that, now there is this easy way to access the SQL database, and it's using the similar concept like we have in LCS SQL Sheet Access for Tier 2 environments. And now for UDE, we will have it through this way. And now with this, user can specify what role he needs, read or write, can provide the IP range. All that is right in that dialog. After that, open the SQL Server Management Studio and provide the username, database name, server name, all those credentials, and you are good to go and connected with the database here. And this is the more, right? So it's not just in terms of parity, right? So unifications, and for that one is SQL Access for Dataverse. For Dataverse, direct SQL access is not possible even in dev or sandbox environments today. So, but the way is it's called Tabular Data Stream, TDS endpoint, in which you can use SQL Server Management Studio to read Dataverse tables. With this option, there are many limitations, such as insert or update does not work. This is only a read-only data connection. Trace parser, as mentioned earlier by Peter, like yes, if you need to deal with performance issues in finance and operations apps, you use trace parser tool in cloud-hosted environment, and it's really important. So same way you can do that in unified dev environments as well. It allows detailed performance analysis. You can take traces and you can drill into code, do the performance analysis, see the code flow, executions, all that, SQL queries, all of it. What you need to do is, as part of metadata download, which Pankaj showed in the demo, it will also download the traceparser.msi file all you need to do is just install that MSI file on your local laptop or workstation. And after that, the rest of the steps are exactly same. Okay, what else you can do, right? So this is about finance and operations Copilot extension. This is very important reason to, and we are super excited about Copilots, right? So and the way to extend those Copilots is via unified dev environment. As we are in the age of AI and Copilots, it's imminent to be relevant and adopt these Copilots usage. We believe that Copilots such as Office 365 Copilots will be part of daily usage, even finance and operations Copilot for F&O users too. And the way to extend these Copilot capability is via Copilot Studio. You might have heard that for low-code developers, but for pro-code developers, for F&O, this is the way. You need unified development environment for that. You need at least the version 10.0.40, and you also need to have Copilot in finance and operations apps installed on that environment. There are a bunch of features coming, some in public previews and one in private preview. In the public preview, we have the feature contextual record, in which the Copilot can access the page, the record information, and the user information. All that the Copilot understands and can answer and navigate or change or page to in the natural language. The second one is client actions, where the pro dev approach is used. And this in this one, you add X++ class, you extend it with Sys Copilot chat actions. And this is the new feature that allows Copilot to invoke any X++ logic you have the client-based app, which you need to have in natural language. This enables Copilot to perform actions that are specific to the context of app, such as navigating form, invoking button, running form action, like posting sales order, any of it you can automate here. And the third feature, which is in private preview, we call it AI plugins for F&O business logic. This feature does use generative actions feature in Copilot Studio. It's basically headless action with X++. Some of the business logic can be exposed to outside F&O, such as Microsoft 365 Copilot, example Teams Copilot or Outlook Copilot. And this allows these Copilots to invoke X++ code from these Teams or Outlook Copilot as well. And it's all connected in a user security aware way. So whatever security roles or security is assigned in F&O to that user, it will consider that. And Copilot, like example, can calculate the customer balance by parsing the customer name and currency based on the prompt given in the Copilot. And now you can call the custom API and run that X++ logic here. So it's super powerful. And the way to extend the F&O Copilot's capabilities is via unified dev environment. We also coming towards our last leg and some really great comparisons here from the admin persona side. So right now, how it works today in cloud-hosted environments, right? Customers need to buy Azure subscriptions, maintain those Azure subscriptions. And many customers have security and compliance issues because they need to open a lot more ports and have that open, and many customers are not happy about it. They need to also make sure they manage their Azure quotas and pay for these environments. Another challenge is new environment setup. It takes many hours today to create that environment, cloud-hosted environment. Now, with unified dev environment, it's very fast, right? So within an hour, you have your F&O environment created. Service and quality updates. Right now, it's all managed by customers, even not just these updates, even the VM updates from non-Dynamics like Windows Update and all also managed by my customers. So it's definitely taking time. And now it's all managed by Microsoft. Same thing, right? If you are connecting with Dataverse, as you need to integrate for dual write, virtual entity, add-ins, there are many features now which has dependency on Dataverse, and now it's manually integration in cloud hosted. It's fully integrated. It's basically one environment. So makes really productivity high and error prone in these cases here. You can also have the options of rollback. So just like in Sandbox, if it's any failure, it supports the rollback. Another one, we did cover this in previous Tech Talk, to copy production data to troubleshoot. If you have production data, you need to bring to developer environment for debugging, for troubleshooting some issue. It's a very painful process today in cloud-hosted environment, and it's much faster in unified dev environment now, and much simpler too, by the way. Deploy changes, so we discussed that too. It takes few hours, and now it's much faster. We saw within few minutes now it can deploy the changes. And if you have a need of like some CMK, customer managed keys, or lockbox, those kind of features, those are not obviously available in cloud hosted, but they do work on Microsoft managed environment. So with this, we do believe the overall total cost of ownership for the admin persona is really high in cloud hosted environments, and it will be real low in the unified dev environment. Another comparison from the developer persona side. So as these environments are one environment with across Dataverse and FNO, so we did cover that, which we are super proud of, is extending the Copilot capabilities. So that's definitely supported. Many times we heard in past, as we have moved for microservices add-ins architecture for FNO, and many times customers, partners need to develop around those add-ins, and cloud-hosted environment don't support all the add-ins, and they have to really go around tier 2 and make it really hard, but not anymore. Now with UDE, you can have those add-ins installed as app, and then you can have that development support. Bring your own device is also very important, right? So now FNO developer are also just same as any other developer in the world, right? So it's not like for FNO, I need to go to the VM and then log in there and then go through that, right? So now just like with C# or any other language, right? You use your laptop, you use your developer VM or your dev workstation, and you connect to your machine, cloud FNO environment or unified environment, and do the development locally. Continuous integration, continuous deployment. We will touch base more into this in our next tech talks. So please stay tuned for that unified dev ALM tech talk. Idea is basically now with continuous integration deployment is now you can have your build verifications or unit tests also as part of DevOps pipeline. So as part of any check-ins, any code review, any check-ins is happening, you can have that unit testing done automated too. And it's also deploying to UDE. So it's not just in the continuous deployment. It's not just deploying to FNO. If you have a solution which is, let's say, dual write or virtual entity or any other solution where you have changes from FNO as well as from the Dataverse side, you can deploy both together here. So it's definitely making that whole total cost of ownership or productivity boost here. Working with multiple environments. So as we saw earlier in the demo from Pankaj, now you can, from your local machine, you can work with multiple FNO environments. From Visual Studio, you have faster debugging here compared to CHE, much faster, and the steps are also much less. You don't need to attach any process. You can also debug batch jobs now very easily. And you have this whole connectivity with Dataverse FNO because it's all single environment now. And we have more things like all from Visual Studio, single author experience for code, deploy, debug, all that, which we saw earlier. This is one of the questions we get a lot. Can multiple developers share a single UDE? So the answer is it's yes and no. So it depends, right? If you are looking to use the environment for testing some features, debugging, sure, you can, right? If you are looking for some bug fixes occasionally using version control also, you can. But also if it's, let's go a little more deeper. Let's say if you're active development going on but working on different models, and it's okay to have some layover in terms of deploy time and all that, the restarts of AOSs and those things, then it's fine. But if it's active development and you think your developer productivity is going down because of multiple developer using same environment, then please better to have separate UDE for each developer here. Another question, I think we covered it already, single dev workstation working for multiple UDEs. So if you have multiple customers or multiple environments for one customer, you can use same Visual Studio, connect to different configurations, and then can switch around, and yes, you can use that. So this is our roadmap or upcoming features which are coming. We heard from our community that we need this unified dev environment or admin environments, PPAC based environments in sovereign clouds. So yes, we are looking to open that in our other clouds in Mooncake, GCC, GCC High. Restore is another one which we are looking to work on, basically point-in-time restore. Today, this option does not work in Power Platform Admin Center for FNO environment. But yes, we are looking to have that option available very soon, where you can have point-in-time restore based on the backups available in SQL. It's standard defined. Delete and recover. This is new team. So today in LCS, if you delete an environment, it's gone. In Power Platform Admin Center, the option is also recover the deleted environment. So that also we are looking to enhance to work for FNO environment too, FNO unified environment. Transaction-less copy, we saw it in last Tech Talk. Really powerful feature if you are looking for optimizing your storage capacity on your tenant and trying to have less data or transaction-less environments for sandboxes, dev environments. You can use this feature. So through UI, it will come soon too. So that's the idea here. Microsoft managed updates, it will also push to UDEs. SQL Jet custom roles. So in this one, what we are doing is based on the feedback community, we are looking to tweak the roles to grant additional permissions. XREF DB size, also based on the community, we saw some customers have, very few customers have really large customizations, and the cross-reference database gets full. So how we can have that compression better so that it reduces the size. And last is on the Visual Studio add-in. There are some add-ins which need SQL database access. So we need to address those as well through SQL Jet credentials here. This is our resources slide. So some of the great links here, which you can use. We will have that published. I will open for Q&A.
So the most popular question is about the billing and cost. Like, how does the billing work? And what will be the cost to have a UD environment?
The current billing model is the capacity-based model. As we transition customers to PPAC, the billing will always happen through the capacity model. Right now, as it is, the UDs are evaluated the same charge as the rest of the sandbox or production, because it's based on the capacity model. But we have plans in the future to change that model differently for the UDs. Stay tuned for that announcement. Right now, the reason why we don't have all the information that are going with the GA is we strongly have the data to prove that 70% of the customers would be eligible for UDs to get it for free, and we will be coming up with the announcements in a month or two about a lot of goodies are going to come in to help you to get to the UDs for most of the customers for free, and also to give the timeline that you need to be able to leverage them as you transition from the CHs. So in overall, the raw cost comparison is not the game that we want to play here. I know there are customers who are paying inside our private preview customers who are paying thousands of dollars to secure these environments, right? Security is the top of the mind for many people. So that's something that, that plays a big role on the UDs in the future. So stay tuned. We will give you the comparison, just for a basic scenario as well. But please today go ahead and check it inside your PPAC. And, if you have a capacity, you can get started today on the UDs and we will address the cost concern. The second most question that I've been seeing is when is the deprecation going to come in? What happens to our CHGs and all of that? There will not be a migration per se. You cannot convert a CHG to a UDE, right? Because the CHG assets are getting split across a workstation, and then in the back end the UDE. There is no migration story for getting you will be able to provision directly the UDE and then set up your workstation and move away from using the CHGs. With respect to the timeline of deprecation of the CHGs, we will be announcing the same time frame when we talk about what the new model would look like, or we have some, as I said, we'll have some goodies that will help you to, or not worry about the cost factor. And that's when we will be announcing the CHG deprecation timeline as well. It's not going to happen overnight, the deprecation. When it comes in, you'll have enough time to transition out. There is zero minimal investment at this time on the CHGs. The VHDs we will continue to ship This time, we don't have any plans. We'll let you know if anything changes in the future.
Thank you, Suresh. So I think we can cover one more question. So we've talked about the application. So the second most question is functional parity between CHE and the UDE.
So I just want to lay out a thing. So our internal first-party engineers have been using this for day-to-day development for the last 1.5 years. We have been in the private preview plus public preview since last February with partners, customers working in it. We don't have any functional gaps at this time with respect to your developer experiences. So whatever you have available from your Visual Studio experience day in, day out, right, including the trace parser, ability to, get into the database access, all the things that we found along this journey has been all plugged in. There is no known gaps with respect to the Visual Studio experience itself at this time. Whatever you can do in the CHEs, you should be able to do it inside the UDEs.
Thank you, Suresh. So it's almost the time. Thanks to our presenters and you, our audience, for attending our Tech Talk today. We hope you have a great rest of the day ahead.